The storm rolled over the valley like a wounded beast, its roar shaking the bones of the abandoned farmhouse, as if trying to warn anyone who dared step. Near it, Ethan Hale stood at the edge of the cracked, weed-choked path leading to the property, rain dripping from the brim of his worn cap, his heart pounding. With a mixture of hope and dread, he had bought the place sight unseen, not because it was a smart investment, but because he was a single father desperate for a fresh start, desperate to give his son something better than the cramped apartment and the memories of a marriage that had fallen apart long before it ended yet, as he stared at the crooked silhouette of the farmhouse. Dark windows, like hollow eyes. He felt something cold slide down his spine, a whisper that the house he had pinned his hopes on carried secrets of its own, and weeks later, when he returned after finishing his job contract out of town, he found something one could have prepared him for. 3 little girls living inside his newly bought, supposedly abandoned home, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and human stories that remind us what truly matters. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more hearts. Ethan had purchased the farmhouse during one of the lowest periods of his life, after his wife left him without warning, leaving behind only a note. And little 7-year-old, Noah, who still woke from nightmares calling her name, Ethan threw himself into work, taking any job he could find: construction, repairs, late shifts, anything. He wasn't trying to build wealth. He was simply trying to patch the holes in their life. Holes that were as emotional as they were financial. When he stumbled upon the listing for the farmhouse, a neglected property on the outskirts of a quiet rural town, he didn't see its broken windows or leaning walls. He saw space. He saw land. He saw a quiet place where Noah could run barefoot on the grass and finally feel free. He signed the papers, promised to return in a few weeks once a distant contract ended, and imagined how he would fix it up. New paint, new floors, maybe even chickens. He imagined laughter echoing through the halls. Noah, chasing sunlight through the rooms. He imagined something like peace, but peace disappeared the moment he stepped through the door that stormy evening. Weeks later, the interior smelled like dust and old memories, yet beneath that there was another scent, something warm, something lived in. Ethan stopped, his hand tightening on his tool bag. A faint rustling sound drifted from the living room, followed by a whisper and a quick hush, like tiny voices trying to disappear into the walls. He moved quietly, each step sinking into the creaking floorboards, his heartbeat louder than the rolling thunder outside. Then he saw them, 3 little girls, barefoot, thin, their hair tangled like wild vines, standing close together near the cold fireplace. The oldest might have been 10, her arms wrapped protectively around the younger 2. The middle girl looked around 7, her wide eyes shimmering with fear, and the youngest, barely 4, clutched a ragged doll missing one button eye. Their clothes were mismatched, old and muddy, but their faces carried stories no child should ever have to hold. Ethan froze, stunned not by fear but by the heartbreaking truth that radiated from them. These were not children playing pretend, nor were they mischievous wanderers. These were children surviving. The oldest girl's lips trembled as she stepped forward, her chin lifted with a bravery she clearly didn't feel. Ethan could see it. She was trying to act like the adult, even though she was still a child herself. He opened his mouth, but words felt too heavy, too loud for the fragile air between them. He didn't know how long they stared at one another, the storm echoing through the broken walls, until finally the littlest girl let out a soft hiccup of fear. That sound shattered the frozen moment, unlocking the breath in Ethan's lungs. In that instant, everything shifted. Not the house, not the storm, but something inside him. He recognized their eyes. He recognized fear, abandonment, hunger, exhaustion. He had lived pieces of each of those emotions himself, and he had seen them in Noah, too. He lowered his tool bag, slowly sank to one knee to appear smaller, and spoke in a soft voice, telling them he wouldn't hurt them, that it was okay, that they were safe. But safety, he quickly realized, was something they no longer trusted. The oldest girl finally whispered that their names were Lily, Emma, and Sophie, that they had been living here for a while, that they had nowhere else to go, that they were hiding from someone. Their father had disappeared months ago, their mother. Ethan didn't push the oldest girl to finish the sentence. Some truths were too painful to say out loud. They survived on scraps, rainwater, and fear. And now, Ethan's home, the home he bought for Noah, the home he dreamed would be their new beginning, was holding a story of suffering he never expected. He ended up staying the night with them, not because he felt obligated, but because leaving them in the storm felt unthinkable. He set up a small fire, shared the little food he had packed, and watched the girls slowly relax. Though exhaustion weighed on each of them like a heavy blanket, he didn't sleep at all that night. He sat on the floor near the cold wall, listening to the rain, thinking, praying, and questioning what he was supposed to do. Part of his life had prepared him for this. He was barely holding things together for his own son, but destiny doesn't always wait for stability sometimes. It calls upon the broken-hearted to help heal someone even more broken. The next morning, Ethan drove back to the apartment to get Noah. The boy was surprised but not afraid when he met the girls. Ethan had always taught him kindness, even during his own darkest days. Noah, with a maturity beyond his years, offered his blanket, his snack, even his favorite toy dinosaur. The way the girls looked at him, as if no one had offered them anything without taking something in return, made Ethan's throat tighten. He knew he couldn't turn them away, but knowing something and being able to act on it were two very different things. Life grew complicated quickly. The farmhouse had no electricity, no running water, and no functioning rooms. Ethan spent his days working long shifts and his nights fixing the house bit by bit, determined to create a place where 5 souls, not 2, could find shelter. It was exhausting. Some nights he fell asleep, sitting upright against the wall. Some mornings, he woke with blisters and bruises from the relentless labor. The girls helped where they could, sweeping floors, picking up nails, carrying scraps of wood. While Noah tried to make them laugh, even if only a little. The more time passed, the more Ethan learned about the girls' lives they had bounced around from place to place after their mother left and their father vanished. They trusted no one. They flinched at sudden noises. They hoarded food out of instinct. They woke crying from nightmares they never explained. And yet, they were trying so hard just to exist. Ethan wasn't their father, but something inside him started to shift. He found himself worrying about them at work, checking his phone, rushing home quicker, buying more groceries, fixing more things, working harder, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. But trouble was never far away. Rumors began to spread in town. People asked why strangers, children, were living on his property. Someone called social services. Fear struck through the farmhouse like lightning. The thought of the girls being taken away, separated, returned to a system that had already failed them haunted Ethan. He didn't know how to explain everything without sounding like a man who had lost his mind. Yes, he bought the house. Yes, he found 3 abandoned children living inside. No, he didn't call the authorities immediately. No, he wasn't trying to hide them. No, he wasn't trying to adopt them without permission. He was just a man trying to do the right thing in a world where the right thing was often tangled in red tape. When a social worker arrived, the girls clung to him, their small hands gripping his arms and shirt, their trembling bodies pressing against him as if he were the last barrier between them and the world that had hurt them too much already. Ethan explained everything honestly, fully, without excuses. He told the truth with a passion that came from the deepest part of his heart. He didn't expect mercy, but sometimes the universe surprises you. The social worker saw something in the girl's eyes. She saw the fear, the exhaustion, the fragile hope. She saw Noah, treating them like sisters. She saw the warmth Ethan had created in the cold, broken house. She didn't remove them immediately. She gave Ethan a chance. Temporary guardianship while the investigation continued. It wasn't a victory, it was a lifeline, and Ethan grabbed it with both hands. The weeks afterward were a blur of repairs, paperwork, long days, and even longer nights. But the farmhouse slowly transformed. Cracked walls became smooth, dusty rooms became bedrooms with blankets and small handmade decorations the children proudly crafted. A broken porch became a place where they all sat under the evening sun. The house, once hollow and forgotten, became alive with the sounds of footsteps, giggles, arguments, and the occasional tantrum. But that was life. Real life. The real change, however, wasn't in the house. It was in the children, and in Ethan. The girls grew healthier, braver. They smiled more, slept better, learned to trust Noah, gained sisters he never expected. And Ethan, he found pieces of his heart he thought he lost the day his wife walked out. He found purpose. He found hope. He found a family he never planned for but couldn't imagine losing. Months later, when the caseworker returned for the final review, she didn't see abandoned children anymore. She saw a home. She saw love. She saw a man who, despite his struggles, had chosen compassion over convenience, and that choice changed everything. If this story touches your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps keep these emotional stories alive and reaching more people. Before we reach the ending, here is a special request. Please comment below what moment in the story moved you the most. In the end, Ethan was granted full guardianship of Lily, Emma, and little Sophie. The farmhouse, once broken and forgotten, became a sanctuary of healing, laughter, and new beginnings. 5 souls, who had each been abandoned in different ways, came together and found what they needed most, a family. And sometimes that's how miracles happen, not with flashes of light or dramatic twists, but with simple acts of kindness, compassion, and courage from a heart willing to open itself once more.